Welcome to the Ayahuasca Parents Podcast.
Super cute.
I know, she's adorable. Her voice sounds so small when it's recorded.
Welcome to the... Really cute.
I know. Hello, Mr. Joel.
Hi. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So today, we're going to talk a little bit about the fallout from doing plant medicines.
Good topic.
Yeah, and how it has reverberated through family, how we are perceived, how a lot of people are perceived after doing a plant medicine and having radical changes take place.
Yeah.
Kind of the stigma maybe attached to plant medicines. But like the judgment that I know everybody goes through after coming home and taking a plant medicine and having ridiculous amounts of insights and healing and wanting to share that with everybody.
It feels so profound that you feel like you have to tell everybody.
Yeah, you want everybody to get help.
Yeah.
So we had something happen. Well, I guess more or less you had something happen like a few weeks ago.
Yeah. So I haven't, just to catch everyone up, I haven't talked to my 4 siblings or my parents in close to 4 years.
Yeah.
Which basically coincided with doing plants.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother, we were in a text chain with friends, and one of our friends was kind of basically expressing how much he missed all of us and appreciated all the good times we had when we were all hanging out and blah, blah, blah. And so my brother decided to drop, hey, sorry, he moved. So he's like, sorry, I haven't been around, between my parents moving out of state and, having a new kid, and so I felt like when he dropped both of those bombs, because keep in mind, I had to find out the hard way my parents moved.
Right.
And when he dropped both of those bombs, I kind of felt like they were aimed towards me, like kind of like, without telling me, kind of like throwing a bone out there, like, I wonder if he'll bite on this.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I thought about it, I'm like, I think that's what he's doing. So I sent him a private message and, basically congratulations on the new kid and just try to say some nice things. And I got back literally the most generic response, thanks for thinking of us. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah. Super cold after not speaking to somebody for almost 4 years and very, in my mind, a little disjointed. Like,
right.
Like there's a disconnect there. Like what have they been telling themselves for 3 years to make the disconnect okay? Is that pretty accurate?
That's 100% accurate.
Yeah. And so you have a friend that came over that you don't get to see more than just like once a year, sometimes not even every year.
Right.
And
he was telling me about a conversation he had with my brother, a few months ago.
Yeah. Oh, I thought it was a year ago.
Or a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a little over a year ago.
And what was your brother's perspective on us?
His perspective was we were doing drugs. And his perspective was, I wish they'd come back to reality.
Oh, that's so sad.
And what my friend said was, well, yeah, but they're way happier. They seem to be doing a lot better. What does it matter how they were able to make that transition? Because, as you know, we were both shit shows and we're not anymore. And so I think I actually appreciated that response. Like, well, yeah, but if they're doing better, what does it matter how they got there? Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of it is just your family in particular trying to make sense of the profound changes, that we've both made, but really what you've made. You're the oldest of 5 kids.
Right.
Literally, you have helped mom and dad, even at one point bought mom and dad a house when they went through a bankruptcy, housed your brother, your only brother, when he was sort of a shit show and going through school himself.
Right.
You've
housed my sister.
Yeah. Given brother-in-laws jobs. There's really not a sibling or a parent that you haven't kind of played Captain Save-A-Ho.
Right.
Right. And so that was your position in the family. You know,
Right.
you'd all been conditioned through epigenetics, through your environment growing up. And that was your position, that if somebody needed something, they go to Joel and Joel makes it better. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Joel saves everybody.
Except for they're, as I found out in hindsight, they're resentful of the fact, yet they still came and asked for help.
Right. So super jealous. And when I entered the family about 15 years ago, that's one of the things that was just like mind blowing. How many of them, including your parents, were like sincerely jealous?
Yeah.
I would say the only one that never really showed any jealousy was probably your brother.
Right.
That was never something I picked up from him, but everybody else. Anyways, so, we take ayahuasca, we go to ayahuasca. Well, let me back up. One of the things I think that contributes to the issues, I guess, that we're having, or, how they perceive us is, like for me personally, I spent 37 years suffering and took a chance on taking a psychedelic there was minimal research 6 years ago. There's a ton of research now, even an FDA approval stamp just recently.
The only really research was people's account of what happened to them.
Well, and maps.org
Right.
and, highly educated, multiple PhD individuals talking about
Underfunded at the time.
Yeah, anecdotal evidence,
Right.
And these theories. So they were beyond hypothesi, these theories about plant medicines in particular. And, for me personally, here I had been searching. If you remember, the year before I took plant medicines, went to a psychiatrist, was, doing talk therapy, psychologist. I was on antidepressants. I went to medical doctors just trying to figure out what was wrong with me. I wanted to so badly be labeled and diagnosed with something so that I could get help because I was suffering so badly. Mm-hmm. So I take, psilocybin mushrooms, a medicinal dose of psilocybin mushrooms. And within 5 hours, the majority of my pain, like 85% of my pain, was gone. Yeah. And when you've been, and my dad's a medical doctor. So when you've been conditioned and programmed your whole life that reality is one way, and then you do something that is against the grain of what people like your brother and your siblings and, your mom and your dad, or my dad and my sister, consider, when you go against the grain of mainstream, right? And you question the systems that we've been raised in, and you have extraordinary results. You look around at these systems and think to yourself, well, if this system was bullshitting me and there was this plant out there the entire time that could have helped me sooner, what else am I being lied to about? What other system is bullshit?
Yeah, well, at that point, I questioned everything.
Right.
Anyways,
yeah.
I told everybody that everything was fucking backwards.
Yeah.
And that, if you want to feel better,
yeah,
take a plant.
And one of the things we've learned is that, communicating is very painful for a lot of really dysfunctional, mentally ill, brain damaged, really individuals. And we come from severely mentally ill and brain damaged families.
Yeah, well, everybody on my side of the family is on an antidepressant, or should be.
Yeah, I mean, the irony that they think that we're doing drugs when the definition of a drug addict is somebody that's doing a drug every single day. Well, the only drug that you and I do every single day is a cup of caffeine, a cup of coffee in the morning. Mm-hmm. There's no more. I mean, we take no neurotoxins. We haven't even had alcohol in almost 5 years.
Well, and I think there is an assumption that these plants are addictive, and they're not even kind of addictive. There's so much work, like, like the energy it takes to comprehend what you see, and then the changes that you need to make. And you just know it. It's a knowingness you have after you see what you see. Okay, I got to integrate and make these types of changes, and these things don't appeal to me anymore, and these things don't feel right anymore. So you're changing everything, and you're kind of blowing up the way you look at life in a way.
Yeah, no, of
but
course.
For the good.
Shifting reality and questioning these core beliefs that you have just bought because mom and dad and brothers and sisters and people in the community have said, well, we've done the thinking for you. Just get into the system.
Yeah.
just think like this. And then at some point you're like, gosh, everything I know, somebody told somebody that told somebody that told somebody that told somebody, you know, I'm not really fact checking this shit myself, you know? And if I, and you,
what's there to fact check anyways? You go
Right.
down 5 lines, you're like, well, actually it was Bob that originally said it. Okay. Who the hell is Bob?
yeah. Did Bob know all that it is? Like,
Well, he's got letters after his name, so he must know what he's talking about. No.
yeah. But I was going to say the irony of the fact that there's not one of your siblings or your mom and dad that aren't on a heavy dose of a psychotropic, right? SSRIs.
Right. Well, I have the one sister that doesn't, but she drinks a lot. So.
Well, yeah, and she does illicit drugs, and she does opioids with her husband. I mean, that's the funny thing. You know, your 2 sisters that are nurses are doing opioids, illicit drugs, and alcohol, and they're on, one of them's on massive psychotropics and sleeping pills.
And has the balls to judge me.
You know, and they're doing this chronically and daily. Same with your brother and your parents, like massive doses. And, your brother had a psychosis, like a full-on psychotic episode.
You know, and the funny thing is, even after hearing what my friend said, that he said, you know, so, which was a hunch I had, right? It was a hunch I had. So, you know, here we are 5.5 years, almost 6 years later. And I do it again. I do it again because I'm better. I feel better. My life's better. The fears I have are gone. The things that were holding me back, they're gone.
Is it safe to say that even your worst day right now is still a better day than your best day 6 years ago?
Yeah, for sure. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah. Hands down. I mean, like, I was debilitated with alcoholism. I was debilitated with depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, I had legit addictions 6 years ago and a crazy case of post-traumatic stress disorder that ruled my life.
Yeah.
And now I have freedom. In fact, part of my integration has been how to make peace with peace.
Yeah.
Because I was in such a constant state of fight or flight all the time.
Yep.
You know, or, not arguing or having fights with you. I mean, that's been kind of, weird. And and I'm not saying this to judge everybody. It's just, I'm trying to be or trying to judge your family. I'm just trying to be incredibly open because there's so many people that go down the plant medicine route. And there's this bizarre dichotomy in families and the familial, relationships that we have of people that are like fascinated and so happy to see the changes. Like, I have 2 brothers and a sister who knew me when I was a colossal shit show, addict, liar, just go down the list, basically in pain all the time. And now seeing me now, they don't understand. They have no idea how it's worked. They have no desire to do plant medicines, but man, they're so grateful that I found them and it works for me.
Yeah. And they're highly religious.
Yeah. But they're also incredibly intelligent, and none of them are on psychotropics. They're not on any pharmaceuticals.
No. And I think they just, they only care about the results.
Yeah. And an unconditional love. I mean, it's the difference when, like, I think that's been one of the hardest things. I call it, waking up out of our epigenetics.
Yeah.
But realizing that there's these familial traits and standards that have been passed down, been passed down from generation to generation to generation, that your mom literally downloaded into you when you were in utero. Mm-hmm. And so then you're born and they create an environment. Well, the environment is going to be very similar to the environment that they were raised in, and same with all of your siblings, and everybody gets comfortable in the dysfunction until one day, Joel
Someone
says,
breaks out and says,
Joel says, this isn't working for me, or I'm going to question everything. Or, you watched me have this ridiculous experience where 85% of my pain was completely abated in like 5 hours. Well, how could you not question and be curious about everything at that point?
Well, and I like to go backwards and think about right after you did mushrooms for the first time and we had to go to a family dinner and no one knew what you did except for me and you.
Right.
And everybody knew something was different.
Yeah. Your mom kept on asking me if I'd lost weight, and I'm like, I'm 230 pounds. Like, I've never been so big, and I'm just like looking at her, and I kept on looking at you like, did you say something to your mom?
Well, and then she's saying the things that I thought was kind of a hippie woo-woo thing. Like,
Yeah.
your eyes look so clear. There's a light behind your eyes. And I'm looking at Mom going, what the hell?
Right. And so then if you remember right, so that was the beginning of the end of March.
Mm-hmm.
And it was your birthday in May that your parents cornered you at sushi and was like, okay, come on, for real, what happened to Cammie?
Right.
So it's fascinating how like you skip, fast forward to now, and they've somehow like delusioned and convinced themselves that, oh, well, they're doing drugs and they're not in this reality, which is something that your sister had said in the last voicemail, that she had a very angry voicemail.
Mm-hmm.
She'd, left me because, part of this process of working with plant medicines is becoming authentic, but also aligning with the truth. So if you have secrets, which I did, and you're exposing those secrets, people aren't comfortable with that. You think you're doing something right. I feel like that was part of my natural, evolutionary process. I needed to, that's how you make restitution, is
Right.
by talking about the mistakes that you made that harmed other people. It's funny how not only, and it was a secret that doesn't make me look good. And yet the entire family's knee-jerk reaction was, she's making it up. She's a liar.
Well,
You must be on drugs. You don't live in this reality.
that was compounded. That was like
Yeah.
the final straw for them. But that was right after, like, for a solid 6 months, I found out that they were all liars.
I know.
And so talking about, that's the thing when you do a plant medicine, as you kind of evolve, you don't want to be around liars.
Well, what happens is that these core value systems, or the way I see it is, these core value systems that we're born with, that our whole family, even though they're dysfunctional, corroborate and say, yep, these are our core value systems. Mm-hmm. You stop trending towards what the family's doing and what the truth is. And you start to, don't you agree? Like
Mm-hmm.
you start to kind of heal into core value systems that are just truth, not because that's the environment mom and dad supported when we were growing up,
Yeah.
During our impressionable years.
Yeah. Still, again, it's bizarre, but I wouldn't do it over differently. I would still do it the same.
Yeah.
And, what you realize is the people that have left your life since you've changed are people that were keeping you in a place that you don't want to be anymore anyways.
Yeah.
So, it's...
Well, and you said this morning, it was really, or maybe it was last night, and you said, I don't know why I would care about these people's opinions of me that are mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
And, the kind of people that they are. Why would I care about what they think of me? It's just more or less just like sad, right?
I have an advantage though.
Yeah.
And the advantage is I remember the thought process, whereas they're in the thought process.
Yeah.
Like that's all they can see.
Well,
I remember how angry and
Yeah.
judgmental, and anybody that was different, I was, like,
we judge them. Like
Yeah,
we
for
judge
sure.
people that were vegan, or we judge people that, were like into crystals or other healing modalities, or, like we judge people that were thinking outside the box and trying other things as
Yeah.
well. In fact, I remember at one point thinking that if you were raising your children a vegan or whole food plant-based, that you deserve to have your kids taken away.
right. Yeah.
That's how sick I was.
Yeah, no, same thing. Some of those guys that I used to work with, when they would want to lose weight, so they'd go vegetarian, I was just judging.
Yeah.
And it's funny that most of the planet is trying to consume less meat and dairy now.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense when you understand things about like the biochemistry of the body and just, lymphatic system and inflammation and what inflammation is. That's really what all disease is. You can brand diseases. Most diseases are branded. Mm-hmm. People don't like to look at it that way, but that's the truth. It's really just all inflammation or detox. One of the two. Your body's either trying to detox or it's inflamed. Yeah. And anyway, that's a whole
other podcast for sure. But I think people, when you do a plant medicine, it's because you want to fix yourself. You're not happy with yourself, and you have to that has to be your number one goal. It's just about fixing you. And when the dust settles, whoever's still around you, those are the real family. Those are the real friends. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that want to see you be the best you. And
don't want to do anything to inhibit you from being the best you. I mean, that's one of the things that have been like one of our core values within our relationship is that we have allowed each other to thrive and to evolve at whatever pace that we need to, and unconditionally love each other. Because what I'm realizing, what you're realizing, is that the more that we know, the more we realize we don't know anything, and we have to remain flexible, meaning that our core values in 7 years from now better not be the same that they are right now. We hope that we continue to shift and improve, right? Perspective, gain perspective, shift awareness, broaden awareness, shift perspective. And, that is the expansion of consciousness.
That's why I try to observe everything I haven't experienced.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to take anybody's word for it anymore.
Yeah. And that's one of the things you said to your friend last night that I thought was super, super profound.
Yeah. Well, it's a good way to, depending on either side of the fence, it's a good way to have a conversation about dietary needs, political interests,
healthcare system, educational system.
Whatever. Because it's like, at the end of the day, like, it's not even worth having an argument for.
You know, what blows my mind is that we're really, like individual scientists. And it's interesting how there's science and then there's the scientific religion. Mm-hmm. And I would put the more closed-minded individuals that think that we know everything, right? Like your brother and your siblings and your parents and my dad and my sister. I'd put them in that scientific religion category, because you want to look at them and go, look around, guys. Like, do we know everything? I mean, have we cured poverty? Have we cured disease? I mean, like, you look at the economic discrepancies and gaps. You look at how unhappy people are. I mean, like, we don't know shit, and the systems, the scientific religion that they've all leaned into, that where they have this megalomaniac, like godlike complex, thinking that, that we've hacked everything, that we know everything. If you look around, that is not the results of our systems, Well,
I think the internet's, the invention of the internet is making it really hard for these companies to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Well, what's interesting is a scientific mind is someone that goes, okay, I'm going to observe something. So you observe something. Like, for instance, I observed that I was in pain, and I observed that I had a great experience with psilocybin mushrooms, right? And so then my hypothesis of, well, other people have said that this could work for them turned into a theory. It was like, wait a second, this actually really, I've got some data now that says that this does indeed work. It's not woo-woo, and then you experiment more on yourself. I mean, that is what a scientist is. It's based on observation. You come up with hypothesis, then it becomes a theory, and then you can then test it out and experiment on, multiple people, and multiple people will have the same result. And with plant medicines, I mean, you have two of the biggest medical institutions, Johns Hopkins and then also Harvard, that are spearheading a lot of the research for maps.org, and the feedback is so positive. It's, hey, you could potentially take 1 or 2 doses, medicinal doses of psilocybin mushrooms, and be cured of your depression. Not you have to take a pharmaceutical branded drug the rest of your life, and most likely in your 50s, deal with some severe side effects from those psychotropics.
Yeah, I'm so happy that it's getting cred now, where instead of it's just a bunch of people that are talking about their experiences, which are valuable, but like in our, what I really enjoy in our case is, like, you take our friend that was over here the other day, he finally did,
a psychedelic.
And why? Because he's watched the results,
Yeah.
He's a very Western science-based, if a scientist didn't tell me it's okay, it's not okay. And then he changed.
Well, because Joel and I decided at some point we had to stop talking about it, and we just had to lead by example and try and be the best people that we wanted to be.
Yeah.
And that has actually made people more curious, you know.
Anybody listening, if you're considering doing your first, what I would call a heroic dose or a massive, a good dose of one of these plants to where you're going to have some, a significant experience that's going to change the trajectory of your life. The best advice I can give anyone is keep it to yourself.
Eyes on your own plate.
Yeah. Just lead by example. Wait for the question.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, because I think the mistake I made personally was I told everybody. In fact, I was like jumping up and down, like you're depressed, go do ayahuasca. You're depressed, go do mushrooms.
Right.
Your life sucks, go do a plant. Well, the problem is I said it so much and I said it in such a weird, bizarre way. I think people looked at me like I was crazy.
Well, yeah, because when you first take a plant medicine, you just become aware of how big your ego is. Mm-hmm. And so you're like trying to advertise or sell these plants with this ego that you haven't even confronted yet.
I'm not even integrated yet.
Yeah. And I think, and of course, it's been almost 6 years since we've taken, a psychedelic. And I think that the conclusion that both you and I have now come to is like, we don't need anybody's validation.
Nope.
For what it is that we've done. We know what it's done. We know how much better we are. We know that we have a quality of life that we just never even, at least for me, I never even thought that where I'm at right now was even possible.
Yeah.
And so I don't need that validation because I've experienced myself, and you and I've we kind of click into kind of observation mode, and we understand that when people are judging us, that really is none of our business. Their opinion of us is none of our business, and they're really telling us more about who they are than who we are. Yeah. Well, and that leads to one other thing, and that is that this is the other difficult thing about anybody that's struggling with family right now, because they took a plant medicine, and that is that, especially if you have distance or space from them, most people will then create thought paradigms when there's no communication. They create these thought paradigms in their head of this different type of reality that's not even true. For instance, your brother, he's really convinced himself in this reality that he's created within his own mind and his own thought paradigms that we're doing drugs.
Yeah.
And that's sad, because if he were to take the time to actually communicate, like here you extended this olive branch, hey brother, let's have a conversation. He would have opened up the door to realize that, oh wow, I'm way wrong.
Yeah. Well, he could ask questions, like some good questions are, how often have you taken ayahuasca?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you it's no more than once a year.
Well, it hasn't even been once a year.
Hasn't even been once a year.
Yeah. Nobody, habitually takes ayahuasca unless you want to puke and shit all the time. And the plants have a defensive mechanism. I don't know what else to say. You literally couldn't drink it if you wanted to.
I think people with depression that don't want to take that big dose, I don't know why it's so scary. If you've never done it, what are you scared of?
Yeah, I think most people are scared of dying.
Change? Well, you're not going to die.
Yeah, but
these plants don't kill people. I mean, my point is if you're struggling from depression and, as someone that took antidepressant for 6-7 years and knows how awful it was to get off of it, when you're taking an antidepressant, let's be honest with yourself. You're just being numbed. Pain's still there. You just don't react to it. Everything that made you mad is still there. You just don't react to it. The depression is still there. Whereas you could microdose on mushrooms, for example, and you're going to intuitively go through the processes on how to get rid of those fears and the anger and the depression. And you're going to figure out what changes you need to make your life better.
Yeah. But the truth is that there are some people that are content with where they're at. Like
like my brother.
Yeah. Their
pharmaceuticals are working for him.
Yeah. The pharmaceuticals, you could say, almost are the reasoning behind the contentment.
My favorite quote from him is when I said, "Do you even know the ingredients?" And he said, "I don't care. It's working."
Right.
Okay. End of conversation. You don't care what you're putting in your body because you think it's working.
That's like saying that you don't care what, plastics doing to the environment or chemicals are doing to the environment, like there's such a disconnect there because everybody knows it's not okay to put chemicals on organic on organic materials because it breaks them down and it pollutes things. Yet when it comes to our bodies, oh no, don't think like that.
Right.
Don't think like that.
He's an environmentalist, deeply cares about the planet, but is not caring about his own space, his own body,
his own planet. And that's the funny thing, is that we're all made out of earth stuffs. The same stuffs that the earth's made out of, we're made out of.
Yeah.
I know. This is part of, why, like, at some point we stopped preaching and really we just sort of like locked it down. It was like, you know what? I'm just the integration part and the aligning with the truth part, the, confronting the addictions, the other, habitual behaviors that were no longer serving us. It got to a point where it's like, I just can't be fighting with the people. We couldn't be fighting with the people in our life, this constant, like, barrage and just the hate. We were experiencing so much hate and lying from specifically like your parents, and then two of your sisters, one in particular that was just nasty.
Yeah.
We decided to shut it down. So what was it? Almost 4 years ago. And we decided to write an email and
take a break
and to say we needed a timeout.
Yep.
And we have been thoroughly punished for that.
Well, yeah, my parents decided to up and move to another state without mentioning anything. So
can you believe that?
Yeah.
I still in my mind, it's so funny to get punished for communication, to be so bold as to say, like, we're just doing the best that we can do.
Yeah.
And we need a timeout. And for them to be like, oh, well, fuck.
I gave you a timeout.
Fuck
there,
you.
Homie.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll show you how conditional my love is.
Yeah.
I'll show you how unforgiving I can be. I'll show you how I can, like, as parents, and we're parents now of adult children. I can't even kind of comprehend where your parents, my parents, because I don't have either one of my parents in my life either. I can't even comprehend that behavior and how you don't at least reach out. Like, if you're a kind and loving human with a kind and loving human heart, like, how do you even kind of do that to your kids?
It goes back to, there's a resentment there for the change. There's a jealousy. Like, these are things I wouldn't have considered, but that's what it is. That's the way I got treated. I mean, you put 2 and 2 is 4.
Yeah. In our families, both of our families, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to make XYZ change.
Mm-hmm.
And then that person would do it. If they did it for more than a couple of months, that was great. If they could do it for a year, that was amazing. But there was no consistency past maybe, 9, 12 months. And so to see the both of us continue to improve, and we're getting off our meds, we're not drinking alcohol, we're not taking any sort of, psychotropic or neurotoxin, we're caring about the ingredients and the chemicals we're putting into our bodies. But not only that, we're not just taking what people say, we're like researching. I'm like opening, and I'm a, hobbyist when it comes to the body, an amateur, biochemist, I guess you could say, but opening up biochemistry books and understanding the processes of the body, understanding the anatomy and the physiology and the biology of the body.
As we should. Actually, everyone should have a small understanding of going on.
Question everything.
If you're going to fix yourself when you're sick.
Yeah. And learn it for yourself. And, along those lines, those things that we learned, I mean, we haven't needed to go to a doctor for 6 years, and our little one, our 9-year-old, has never been on an antibiotic.
Right.
And it's just because we educated ourselves and we now understand the processes instead of, and look, I read case studies. I don't just wait for an editor that is paid for by a big corporation to surmise a case study. I open them up and I look at them.
Yeah.
And I look at several of the same thing, and I look at who funds them. And I look at how they're constructed and why they might be constructed certain ways.
I mean, that is a change that has been welcomed, right? Where it's like, I have to know, I have to figure it out for myself instead of taking everybody's word for everything. And the improvement in life that's come from that, learning about foods, learning about botanicals, learning about all these things, and people might be sitting at home going, yeah, but I don't have time to learn about that. You'd be surprised what you have time to do once you clear the clutter out of your head.
Right.
Like, I don't think people understand how locked down they are.
Well, and when you start taking care of yourself, like literally if you remember right, we also never thought that we had time. You know, It was like, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time to do anything selfless towards myself. And what we realized is that the more that we took care of ourselves, the more we were taken care of, or the more we had this ability and this capacity to do more. And you're right. People don't understand how much their pain loops in their head to a point where they feel like that they don't have time, or people falling into crazy routines that have a lot to do with programming, television programming, and life revolving around TV shows. I mean, oh my gosh, I look at that and I look at how we used to, you know, like I text you like Grey's Anatomy's on, you know, like it's so sad. Like that's so sad that was our life and our reality, or that, you know, you must have dinner by, you know, 6 p.m. 6 p.m. is when you must eat dinner. You know, when I decided to cook organic, whole food, you know, plant-based, you know, diverse meals, I just decided that it didn't matter what time we ate, that's what I was just going to be dedicated to doing that every day.
Yeah.
And we have. And we found the time.
Well, yeah, it's enjoyable once you, I mean, you know, when you decide to change up your diet, you know, for people that are like, well, I don't have the time or I can't afford it. First of all, eating mostly plant-based is cheaper. So if you're a tight ass like me, that's welcomed. The second thing is like, you'd be surprised how you can just, you know, cut up some potatoes, throw in some peppers and onions and call it a meal. It's good.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the results, the benefits of, I mean, I lost 80 pounds in about 3.5 months. I've kept most of it off.
Yeah.
I've gained back 10, 15 pounds. But other than that, like, I mean,
I lost 60.
And when was the last time you saw me sick? Legit.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't get the colds. We don't get the flus. We don't throw up. Like, it's anyway, complete tangent. Well, I want to get back on track, and I want to ask you a question. And that is, how have you managed to make, you know, the disconnect with the family okay? Like how...
It took a lot of time.
Yeah. Tell me about the process, like what conclusions you had to come to or realizations you had to come to.
Well, you know, first of all, there's acceptance. You have to just accept. You got to accept that, well, this is where we're at. And, you know, I think the biggest thing is I had to become honest. And so the honesty was, okay, so who am I right now? What do I enjoy? What's my thought process like? How have I changed, you know, now compared to who I think they still are? Because I don't know who they are anymore. It's been 4 years, so I don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that unless they're doing some sort of psychedelic, they're probably close to the same. And as much as I feel bad that nobody's reached out and nobody wants a relationship, that basically everybody turned their back and it feels like some sort of punishment going on, I had to ask myself, well, do I want them to reach out for more reasons than just to feel wanted or missed? And the answer is no, because I don't vibe with them anymore. We don't have anything in common. We have completely, you know, different goals. We have different we look at life differently. We look at everything differently. So we're not a match. And so
it would create more pain.
It would create more pain because I would have to be fake.
Right. And
I'd have to be closer to the person I was before. And I can remember those relationships, and they're very dramatic. There were lots of drama going on. There were lots of manipulation, shit talking, people going behind each other's back. I mean, you know, the thing is you can't see how dysfunctional certain relationships are. In my case, external family, you can't see how toxic it is until you're removed. And then you're like, whoa.
Yeah, and that puts things in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But you still have that, like, you know, longing, especially from parents, and you really admired your brother, and you still had that longing of wanting them to see the changes that you made, and then you reconcile at some point, or at least this is what my observation of you was, that you realized that didn't matter as much as how you felt about you.
Yeah, you just get to the point where you're like, I know I'm a better person.
Yeah.
I know I'm healthier. I know I'm funner to be around. I know that the people that are in my life really, really like me. I mean, with what I do for work, I mean, everybody wants to be my best friend, and that's not like an ego thing. I'm likable.
Mm-hmm.
And
because you're real.
Yeah, I'm real. I'm just authentic. I don't bullshit people. Try to keep things light, try to keep things funny, and I'm heart-based. I don't do anything that I know is going to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't try to put people down. I don't try to make people feel less than. Those were all qualities of my family growing up. So, it takes time. It's not an easy process. There's not a plant that'll make you forget your family. So
right.
Haven't found that plant yet. So you just go through the normal grieving process.
Right. The mourning process. And that fluctuates into these layers. Like you go through the 5, steps of mourning, and then, shift in perspective, a broadening of awareness at some point. You go through the mourning stages again,
Mm-hmm.
and you sort of kind of go through those until you find like almost self-confidence or the love for self where you accept, like what you were saying, that's just where they're at, and that's okay. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay that they want to live in that reality.
Having a separation, we're doing ourselves. Both of us are doing each other a favor.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I add chaos to their life too, because I don't fit.
Well, and there's another layer to this, and that is that we still have 2 young children, and we don't want anyone that can't be consistent or that hasn't worked through their mental illness or brain damage around our kids. And we've, just because of some recent experiences, like, we're really, really kind of hyper aware at this point of who's around our children, what are they saying to our children, what kind of access do they have to our children, right. And we don't want to allow anybody back into our lives that could be inconsistent or, hurt our kids.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it feels pretty good being in control of that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, anybody that is considering doing a plant medicine, and if you're listening to what I say and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't consider that I might be losing family members, this and that. Look, your priority needs to be making yourself better.
I agree.
When you're a better parent, when you're a better sibling, when you're a better whatever, mm-hmm. whatever your relationship is, when you're better, the people that the people that are going to appreciate and support and want you to be the better person, you're going to have stronger relationships with them. The other people, they're going to fall the wayside. But what's your goal? Is your goal to be a better person? Is your goal to be happier?
Yeah.
Because if it is, take no prisoners. You can't care who's going to be left in the fallout. You can't care.
Yeah. And when I was opening up, somehow along the way, I had this false belief system that, whether or not I was very spiritual or not, had a lot to do with mending these perceivably broken relationships.
Yeah.
And that is just not true. That is not anyone that's trying to tell you that your spirituality is contingent on you, accept or having people in your life that are not healthy. That's not true. And it's not helpful either.
No. I mean, it comes back down to being authentic, right? Mm-hmm. With what you're referring to. Somebody was trying to look a certain way but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not healed.
Well, what happens too is we have these mirror neurons. And for instance, like if I were to say to you, Joel, I'm headed to Hawaii next week. Most people are thinking about either the fact that they've been to Hawaii in their experience, or they're thinking about that they've never been to Hawaii before. So when you start to talk about these big epiphanies that you've had, especially if you say spiritual epiphanies, because religious people have tried to hijack that word spirituality. Mm-hmm. And so like, your parents, I have a parent and siblings that are very religious, and all of a sudden they feel threatened. You're threatening them based on the fact that you're saying that you took a psychedelic that they've been told is a Schedule 1 and a drug. And you're having these spiritual mind expanding experiences that are giving you introspection and perspective about the self and about the issues that you're facing. Mm-hmm. They're immediately threatened, and what's happening is that they're mirroring back at themselves what you're saying, and now you're threatening core belief systems. And somebody that doesn't think that there's anything wrong with their core belief systems or that they need to be adjusted, this can be incredibly traumatic for them.
Yeah, they're gonna hang on,
and they're gonna resent you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're gonna think that you're the problem.
Really dig their heels in, as we experienced.
Yeah, it's an ego defensive mechanism. The ego's whole design is to keep you safe, you know, and to help you from going into psychosis. And with some family members that have already been in psychosis, I don't know what the plural term is. You know, that's a reality for them. They don't want anybody around that's going to threaten the reality that they've created and feel like is safe.
Isn't that interesting?
It's sad.
Yeah, it's sad.
And it's boring.
Well, yeah.
Because, you know, like, yeah, did we right off the bat start leaning into things that are woo-woo? Absolutely.
Of course.
Am I a little embarrassed about it? Sure. But I'm actually grateful for the experiences that we had. One, it shows that we had the ability to open up and look at everything. Like true scientists, observe everything, experiment with everything, and find it out for ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting, I mean, just speaking of that was an interesting thing that my friend brought up the other day, that my brother said, well, he's, you know, into crystals and he thinks they have magic powers. And I was like, I don't know how you got that impression. I do like looking at crystals.
Well, we love rocks and minerals and all things from the earth. We'd much rather display rocks and minerals in our home than shit built in China that's going to last for 3 months.
Right. But I don't think they have magical powers. And I'm okay putting a really, really pretty, you know, polished crystal like a, you know.
Or crystal sound bowls.
Yeah,
they're beautiful.
Play a crystal sound bowl and see what it does to you.
But they're just beautiful just to look at, you know?
I mean, I don't think there's any problem with that. What's the difference between collecting that and, like you said, junk from China?
Yeah, or nasty wallpaper, or just stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know where he got that impression, but probably from me. I said something. And it was taken out of context, and everything was brand new coming out of my mouth. So yeah, okay. So that happened. So I guess I used to believe that crystals had magical powers, but I don't anymore.
Yeah.
Because I dabbled in that, and now I just think they're pretty.
Yeah.
And I enjoy looking for them.
Well, they're very grounding. I mean, they're from the earth, so they carry a lot of electrons with them, and so they do put off a very grounding energy, But when it comes to, hey, hold this crystal, it will cure your cancer. No, that's not the way it works.
No.
Yeah. And I think that was the thing. I think that was one, I don't want to call it a mistake, but in hindsight, kind of a mistake that we made was that we felt safe enough to share and communicate to the family around us what we were experiencing. Yeah. Yeah. And unbeknownst to us, even though they seemed like your parents seemed, they'd always say, you guys are doing such a great job. And they'd say, like they at one point told us that, out of all the grandkids, they were the most impressed with our kids. I mean, things like that, like just how warm and loving and blah, blah, blah. So to then hear that that's not really how they felt, that was just BS that they were telling us.
It's a little heartbreaking, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And again, kind of tells us more about them than it does about anything else,
That's what I love about your family. They've been consistent. Your 2 brothers and your sister. They've been pretty consistent. Well, and they just care about the results. They don't give a shit how you got there.
And what's interesting is that, like, I'll share perspectives. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be like, well, this was this was my 4th cup of ayahuasca, and this is what, I downloaded. I don't talk like that. It's like, well, this is the aha that I had within myself. And we'll philosophically have these great, deep intellectual conversations. And they will then think about things and come back. And I love hearing their downloads, their ahas. I like hearing, how they filter it through their own beliefs and religion, and then share that insight with me. It's been very helpful, and it's been very connecting. But what it's really done is put a big spotlight on, like, what unconditional love really means.
Yeah.
And what compassion means.
Yep.
And forgiveness. And, and like you said, it really gives us a good feel for who wants to be in our lives and who really doesn't want to be in our lives. Like, we have 4 of the most amazing children, and we have 4 ridiculously amazing relationships with them.
Yep.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yep.
And them us.
And a lot of that relationship got better after we got better.
Yeah, collectively as a family, I think we were nosediving.
Yeah, we weren't in a good place.
The kids weren't in a good place.
No. So it's yeah, I mean, that's the other, that again, for people that I guess stuck with us through the change, they got to see the whole change, right?
Right.
They got to see our kids improve, they got to see us improve. And I think a lot of people that have been with us since the beginning, I think they are inspired to make their own changes. Maybe it's not with a plant medicine. Maybe it's with something else, little changes, but who cares? Well,
like your friend yesterday said, like watching us, but he just, it was presented to him and he was just like, yeah, it was almost like, you'd given him the courage to go ahead and say yes. But how many people have we briefly talked to about plant medicines that have then found us years later and said, hey, by the way, I have to tell you, you saved my life.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing your story. Or I told my, brother or my, sister, my friend about what you did, and we found a center, and, it saved their life, or it helped, the amount of vets. That's another thing too. The amount of vets that you help.
Yeah.
I mean, you work with a lot of vets in your job, and all of them have PTSD.
Yep.
Severe kinds of PTSD. And between that modality and the fascia restructuring, I mean, like, these men and women are getting real help.
Yeah, real help without side effects.
Right.
That's
getting off the 50 medications, pharmaceuticals that they're on that
the VA gives them. The VA gives them like 50 pharmaceuticals. I mean, you should see these. You should listen to these guys talk about the amount of pills that are like, oh, you got that? Here's a pill. Here's a pill.
And how angry they become after they've taken a medicinal dose of a plant medicine, and the incredible amount of instant change and relief that they've had.
Yeah.
And they just get pissed at that point.
Yeah, which, I think is normal processing,
So another question, why do you think, because I've always thought of your dad and, your brother as pretty smart people. What do you think?
Same here. What
do you think the blockage is for them not to do the research, not to, I mean, like, they always talk about sources. So here you've got Johns Hopkins University and Harvard University and the FDA. Why do you think, where's that intellectual curiosity that they've always seemed to have? Like, why do you think they haven't really researched it, and why they want to just believe it's not real? This is not a real reality, that it's a drug. Why do you think they still want to believe that it's a drug and that it's not a medicine?
That's a great question. I don't know if I know the exact answer. I mean, with my dad, it's religion, right?
You think so? It has to do with religion?
There's a religion, and he's so fear-based.
Mm-hmm. So maybe your brother too, then it's just about fear.
I mean, I came back a tad. I go there atheist, and I came back not believing in a God.
Right, not a man.
Believing in this, like, there's definitely this higher power that everything works within.
Right.
And I tried to express that, and my dad, wasn't digging that because he thought he just found Jesus. Mm-hmm. So, with Brian, my brother, on the other hand, he is atheist to the core, and everything is science-based, and his resources that he approves of haven't started talking about it yet. And his resources that he approves of have, put out little articles that have talked about, to me, it's just propaganda. It's not even real, I mean, has anybody ever died from ayahuasca? Yeah, for sure. Like 1 or 2 people have died, and it's typically
Doesn't even compare to the amount of people that die daily from
No.
pharmaceuticals, or number 2 cause of death in this country, doctoring.
Right. Well, the people that died of ayahuasca were not going to places that were vetted and sourced out. And
they didn't do any of the prep. They didn't know that, ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca won't work with you if you're on an antidepressant. In fact, that could kill you.
It will kill you, or alcohol, if you've had alcohol.
Yeah.
Or if your brew's wrong.
Yeah, because I mean, when I went, my brother was sending me all these articles about how bad it was, and I don't know what I'm doing. And to be honest with you, my friend did that too.
Yeah, I know.
And because his mom's is a brain health professional, and so she must know better. And I'm not trying to sound catty, but he gives his mom a lot of cred for how things should be done because she is a, professional. Well,
and then he sat in the seat yesterday and was like, his mind was blown. He's like, even though we're talking about other things, I'm still thinking about what I just experienced. And I'm like, I know, because doesn't it feel more real than this reality? And he was like, psh, hands down, I don't even know what to tell you. He goes, something in my mind opened up. And I'm just like, this is so cool.
Or
so
something
cool.
got cleared out of the way.
Yep. I know.
I mean, he has no idea what's going to come next.
Yeah, I liken it to learning how to drive. Like, you can read the manual, you can know all of the rules, all the regulations. It's people that haven't done psychedelics will sit there and tell you all of the things to be afraid of, all the things, all the consequences, all the side effects, blah, 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 blah. They make it sound like that they're the experts, right? Mm-hmm. And just like driving, like, just because you read everything that there is to read, or, like when you're a new mom, before you have that baby, you're reading all the books, you think you know everything. Wow. Then that baby comes, or you get behind the wheel of a car, and you don't know shit until you've experienced it yourself.
There is no such thing as an expert when it comes to healing yourself with plants, because everybody's experience is different.
Yeah.
It's unique to them.
Yep.
And, like our shaman said, like, the worst thing you can do is learn about other people's experiences and then have expectations, because it's not going to end up that way. Yep.
I'm preparing to go back to the Amazon, and one of the things, and I've been to the Amazon now 3 times, so this will be my 4th time. And one of the things that I've realized that never occurred to me until now was really the only thing I should really be focusing on right now is just having courage.
Yeah.
Is really just being just really focused on breathing into whatever I need to breathe into, and have the courage that I need to see whatever it is I need to see, whatever that is.
Well, and speaking of courage, most people, when you talk to them, what their fear is, what they're going to see.
Yeah, I know.
Well, now let's talk about that for a minute. So you're scared of what you're going to see, yet something in your subconscious that's holding you back from being your best you.
Right.
Fucking show it to me twice already.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. Like, show it to me twice. Yeah. But again, I've already done it. So I know what the results are. And I know that there's nothing, first of all, you don't get re-traumatized, and whatever you're going to see is going to give you the perspectives needed to heal it, move on, get rid of the loop, whatever.
Right. And isn't this one of the biggest frustrations about taking a psychedelic and having profound results almost instantly, is that you love all these people, and you want all these people to experience the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And then when you start telling all these people that you love, that you think love you, about your experiences, to have them judge you so hardcore based on their very small awareness.
Yeah, well, it definitely was really painful, but I think it was necessary to go through that process, and I think I can legitimately tell you I'm not sad anymore. It's acceptance. You accept it. I've tried to remain open-minded that things might not stay this way forever, but I think I'm not. I mean, I'm open-minded, but like, I have no expectations whatsoever. If I don't talk to anyone ever again, and I'm 90 years old, and I don't know if anyone's alive, that's okay.
Yeah, I think at some point what I realized was the only family that I really, really care about is the family that I made with you.
Yeah, family that's under our roof.
And that we have some exciting things on the horizon, like, grandbabies, and we'll be able to be the best grandparents to our grandchildren,
Oh man.
Right?
Not even, yeah. And I like that visualization where it's like we both broke off our branch from our family tree and then replanted it and went, you know what? I'm not going to continue that bullshit on. I'm starting a new
line.
Yeah. Yep. So this is where it starts here.
Yep. With decent, truthful core values of, unconditional love and forgiveness and compassion. We've talked about this too, because we have older kids, and our oldest is super successful. He's 21, but he's ridiculously successful, more successful than most of the other men in our family. And
the trajectory he's on now, he'll be more successful than us.
Yeah, which is great.
I think it's awesome. Yeah. More power to you, homie. Yeah. Like, do you?
Yeah.
Go get that Lambo or whatever it is you need to.
But we've talked about like what happens if he were to come to us and say, you know what, I need a timeout. I mean, like, I think I'd probably give him a couple days, and I wouldn't care what he said. Like, if my son wrote to me the type of letter that we wrote to your family, I'd probably give it a week, and then I'd be like trying to communicate. Yeah. But then I'm a healthy person now, and I understand that when you shut down communication, it allows for you to create these thought paradigms because you're not checking in anymore. So your mind can literally run vamped in these alternate realities that now you think that a person is, when in reality we're not anything.
Well, part of the plant process, if you will, when you take a massive dose and you start to see what you need to see, one of the things you see is how you treated others.
Yeah.
That's one part. And the other part is, and you see it clearly, like, what was the first thing I did when I came home from Peru? I wrote everybody in my family an email and followed it all up with a phone call to basically apologize at age 40 for things that I did 25 to 30 years prior.
Yeah, when you were children.
Because I could see it and I was like, holy shit, I was a asshole at times, So I go ahead and I apologize for all that, as you did the same thing with your family. Mm-hmm. But then there's a part, specifically with parents, where you need to address how you were treated.
Yeah, and you were legit abused, physically, mentally, emotionally by both mom and dad.
Right. And there's just a point where it's like, hey, we got to talk about this, because I don't know why I gave you a free pass, but I never really got over it. I put it in a box and it's out of the box now. So like, I know that's not you anymore, but like, we got to talk about it. I got to at least say, hey, that sucked when you pinned me on the floor and stuck your knee in my temple, or yelled at me or chased me around a table or hit me or whatever you did. I got to talk about it. And, I think, and I think anyone that is in pain because of their upbringing, and then it's time, and then they want to, they choose a plant, or I think you go through that without a plant, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. I think so too.
Plants are a tool.
Yeah.
But what we did, you can do without a plant.
Yeah. We see a lot of people do that just as they get older,
yeah.
As they're facing mortality, they're like, really kind of questioning some of those things that they thought that would make them happy, or their relationships, and wanting to do better.
But I think it's okay. Like, if you wrong somebody and they need to talk about it, be a stand-up person.
What's interesting is that your dad was willing to do that for you in 2015.
Yeah.
Now, when you were ready and you gave him a pass, you were like, no, I don't need to talk about it. In 2016, when you did need to talk about it, that was pretty much, he started quoting ridiculous Beatles songs.
He was ready to talk about it in 2013.
Oh, was it? No.
Yeah.
It was after we got back from ayahuasca. Yeah.
Well, the first time...
Because he had just lost his job.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. Well, the first time we talked about it, he was more willing to talk about it. And I was like, nah, I'm good. That was definitely 2013.
And I think again in 2015. And then in 2016, it was no, I did the best that I could. Sorry. And then they tried to rewrite history, remember? And Brian was the one that was like, no. Like, no, what Joel's saying is true. It's actually true.
Yeah, they try to rewrite history. It's really weird how that turned out, but again, it just, you got to be confident in where you're at and what you're trying to do, Yeah. And so I'm trying to fix myself. I'm trying to be a better husband, a better dad, and a better friend.
Right.
And a better son, right? And sibling and whatever. Well, I am a better son. You're just not around to see it.
Yeah.
And I am a better sibling. You're not around to see it. And those that are around get to be part of my family, I guess.
Well, we have people like this, your friend that came over last night. And, one of the things that he always tells you is like, you're so smart. You're like the only friend he has that can, that talks about interesting, fascinating things. You're the only friend really that has these curiosities that you don't just repeat Groundhog's Day every day. You're not so, scheduled that everything is planned out for you, and that your entertainment isn't, hey, let's go to the bar and get drunk and watch a movie or a TV show or talk about
or something.
Yeah. Talk about celebrities and, yeah.
No, I mean, like
Sports
yesterday we sat and had a 9-hour conversation that blew past both of us, and we weren't even reminiscing about anything.
Right.
It was just having a full-on conversation about plants, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But, it's, again, doing plants, you have this drive inside of you where you want to be a better person.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
And the thing is that we used to be so connected to the plants, all the medicinal plants, even the ones that aren't, psychedelic plants. And, 150 years ago, people were still using psilocybins. You have all these, shamanic cultures, Amazonian cultures. Every basically ancient civilization had a psychedelic that they worked with.
Right. Everyone.
Every single one of them. And on every single continent.
Yeah.
And it's talked about in the Bible over and over and over and over again as well. I mean, what do people think that these prophets were getting their visions from?
No, I mean, these plants heighten your discernment.
Yep.
Which make you less likely to be controlled or impressed upon.
Yeah. Conditioned.
You're not,
Especially if you're not taking the government's pharmaceuticals, because there's a frequency. I mean, like if you don't know that everything has a frequency of vibration and energy, this isn't woo woo. This is physics. And if you don't understand things about frequency, I don't know what to tell you, but these
start there.
Yeah.
Look out.
Yeah. These pharmaceuticals have a frequency. And I don't know. I just, after watching your friend yesterday, I was so excited because at one point you said that he made a comment about the pineal gland. and just 6 years ago, we went to dinner and he laughed at me when I made the comment about that. And
he
now
denied it existed.
Yeah.
And now he's telling me where DMT comes from inside the brain.
I know. I love it. And that's the thing, is that follow your curiosity, be your own inner scientist.
Yeah.
Come up with your own hypothesis based on your own observation, then experiment with it, make it a theory, see if other people can reproduce it. I mean, like there's no reason anymore to dumb ourselves down where we're just looking for, sources, valid sources. Like, why are you dumbing yourself?
Do the thinking for you.
Yeah. Why are you dumbing yourself down? Like, it just really shows that a lot of people are insecure in their ability to accumulate and understand information.
Yeah.
And intimidated. And I was intimidated too to pick up a biochemistry book or to learn more about physics I
was intimidated to question what a doctor would say.
Yeah, I know.
Until you research what a doctor knows and doesn't know.
Right.
Like a doctor trying to give you nutritional advice when they take 2 nutrition classes in their 10 years of
Well, and that's been one of the best things are leaning into these professionals, these people that were medical doctors and physicists and chemical, engineers or biochemists, or even mathematicians or historians. And as they've healed themselves and, either through psychedelics or another, trance state modality, I mean, the epiphanies, the ahas, the curiosities that they have, the blooming of this information now, where the traditional scientific community is like, no, we've already figured out all the answers. And there's a bunch of us that are like, well, if you figured out all the answers, then why is humanity still so sick? Why are we
getting sicker?
Yeah, we've never actually been more sick than we are right now.
Yeah,
as
we're so
collective.
Advanced.
Yeah, why do we still have people that are starving to death?
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm attempting to say here is that like all the thinking has not been done All the thinking has just begun. Humanity is going through another evolutionary bump, and you're either going to be on the wave or you're not. You're going to continue to live in that sad paradigm, that some of our family members find themselves in, or you're going to be one of these cutting edge humans, and here's the benefit of working with psychedelics. And this is provable across the board with just about everybody. And that is you get a severe bump in your IQ. Mm-hmm. And the more sober you become, so we don't work with pharmaceuticals. We don't clean with chemicals. We don't eat chemicals. We very organic. We don't take any illicit drugs or any drugs, period. No pharmaceuticals. Mm-hmm. The only drug I guess you could say that we take is caffeine. And we've cut our caffeine consumption down from a whole pot of coffee each to 1 cup of coffee.
Sometimes 2.
Yeah, but my point is that as we become, more sober mm-hmm. in every aspect of our life, even not working with anxiety, not working with anger, our minds and we seem to be getting more intelligent is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to be more intelligent?
Yeah. We seem to see things in a way that other people just can't see, you know, like you'll see someone's perspective on things, and there's this ability that we have to see it in another light.
Well, wouldn't you? It's an ability that most people get.
Yeah. When
they take a plant and they work with it.
Yeah. And expand their consciousness. It's like, your whole life you're looking through this keyhole, this mm-hmm. little tiny keyhole, and that's your frame reference of reality. And everyone's told you that that's it. That's all we know is that. And then you take plant medicine and it opens up these double doors in your head that you didn't even know were there to this other way of being, these other perspectives it's just fascinating. Like life literally gets super, super interesting. Yeah. And that's when you realize the more you go down these paths, the more you realize, oh God, I don't know anything. Like the more I learn, the more I realize that we don't have enough folds in our cute little tiny brains to accumulate and comprehend, what reality really is, So
if you're someone that's feeling anxious and depressed and all that, have anger issues, and you're, screwing around on YouTube or iTunes and you find this podcast, like, how would you coach somebody?
I just say, do your research and follow your heart and
find what clicks.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that, because of the prevalence now of plant medicines, a couple things to be aware or beware of. Anyone that tells you that they're a healer and that they can heal you, run the other direction. Yep. Anyone that's a true advocate of the plants will call themselves a facilitator. They will not call themselves a shaman. They will not call themselves a healer.
That's great advice.
Yeah. And so I'd really also, when you're looking at an ayahuasca center, look at the kind of people the ayahuasca center is turning out. So if it's a bunch of meathead UFC guys, rawr, and that's what you want to be, that might be a great place for you to go. If it's turning out a different type of person or, just pay attention, pay attention. Yeah. When it comes to any psychedelic, you want to make sure that you do your research. And there's so many places now where it's legal. Like there are tons of case studies that are available through maps.org. I'm just going to say maps.org about 80 million more times during the podcast, where you can sign up to have a controlled setting experience. Yeah. There's a lot of people that are into that. There's ayahuasca centers that are super, super expensive in Costa Rica and more like 5-star spas. I mean, if
that's what you need.
Yeah. Then do it. There's other places in the Amazon where it's more,
there's places more primitive than where we went, where you're literally sleeping in a tent in the middle of the jungle.
And there's zero electricity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
if you're cool with that. Yeah.
The plants have a way of sort of continuing to pop up into your awareness.
Yeah. When you see that all the time mm-hmm. with people.
Some people call it a calling,
It could just be your brain that's like reminding you, this is what we need to do.
Yeah. And
this is what we need to do.
Follow your heart and find what's right for you.
Yeah. You know, when we first went to Peru the first time, I don't even know how I must have commented on Facebook or something, or maybe reset.me or something, but I had people reaching out to me wanting to saying, I'm considering this sanctuary. I'd like some information, how was your experience? I if you're narrowing it down to a couple, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Search people out, because there's some places that's centered around being a psychonaut.
Right.
Just tripping balls. Well, if you're looking to trip balls, there's a lot of places that aren't right for you, because when you show up, it's all about healing, and it's all about confronting whatever it is you need to confront and so on. And it's not about the trip.
Well, yeah. And again, this goes back to really looking at the type of people that a sanctuary or a place turns out. Like if you just keep hearing about people's visions, like, well, then I visioned this, and, then my flesh was ripped off my body and I turned into a jaguar. If those are the types of experiences that you're after, I mean, you can certainly find those places, but just keep in mind that those visions are symbology for you. Those are that's symbolism for you, for whatever it is that you need to work out, for you. Anytime I get super turned off when people start telling me about their visions, because that's not what that's about.
No, like when our friend came over yesterday, it was awesome that he didn't really care about the vision.
Yeah.
What did it mean?
Yeah, he was like, what does that chair mean?
Yeah, I should have sat in the chair.
Yeah. And I'm like, and I got like, I was almost giggly inside, because I'm like, he gets it.
Yeah.
Like, because so many people get obsessed about what they saw, and then I saw this, and then I turned into some big, huge emoji, and it's like, and not everybody visions.
The funny thing is about those recounts about people turning into jaguars and snakes and blah, blah, blah. Those are the popular ones. Those are not even the majority.
Right. Right.
The majority of people see something that's only important to them.
Yeah, but you know how humanity is. They obsess over the minutia. It's like colloidal silver, the one guy that turned blue and everyone's like, don't take colloidal silver, but that's what we do. We obsess about the minority.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, in everything.
Well, it's like an example of our news cycles, right? The only things that make the news cycles are the crazy off the wall shit that ends up being the minority.
I know it's a bizarre human condition thing.
Yeah.
But
I think people that are struggling, you have options, and you need to be brave
and
follow through.
Yeah. And realize that, when our shaman would say to us, or, our facilitator, he would say that when you go home, just keep in mind that everyone is still the same. You're the one that's changed. Now, this was really important advice for the both of us, because the tendency, because we're so ego-based, is to go home and go, oh my God, everyone is crazy and everyone's changed. No. But in reality, your entire paradigm, everything that you thought that you knew, has changed, and you're confronting things. You're confronting things on a quantum level. You're confronting your epigenetics, on a biological level. You're confronting any mental illness or brain damage that you've suffered from. You're confronting your environment. Like, you're trying to align with the truth. And I got news for you. If you're a modern human, you were not born into an aligned truth.
No.
Home, familial nest, know?
You've been programmed since.
Yeah. Everyone has been programmed.
Yep.
And so, like, first and foremost, I would just figure out how quickly to observe and to try not to be triggered or use those triggers. I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, I realized that anytime I was triggered, it said more about me, that I'm the one that was in control of how I felt. And I would use those triggers as a way to reflect it back at myself and go, what belief system do I have in play that's not in line with the truth, where that would trigger me? Because I really do feel like that the truth is the truth. The truth shouldn't trigger you, period.
No, that great analogy. You can tell me 2 + 2 is 5. I'm not even going to react. Right.
I mean, no one would react to that. They would just question the person that was like, no, 2 + 2 is 5. And it doesn't matter how angry they get. you're inside of yourself. The feeling that you have is like, oh, that poor person. Like,
Yeah.
right. You would never. So when you do get triggered over what someone says, I like to reflect that back at me, go into full observation mode and go, well, what belief system do I have in play within myself that's not in line with the truth? What do I need to see here? Why am I being triggered by this person?
Yeah. That's such an interesting way of looking at things. It took me a while to really accept it. Like,
I know.
Holy shit, I'm crazy. I still have crazy thoughts. And the more I spend time going, why am I reacting to this? And then oh, okay, I can see that differently. Oh, okay, I was looking at that wrong. I see that, and it helped a ton.
Well, it helps you not to suffer, and it's called, confronting your victimization programming. Because, and the thing too is that when you have a belief or a truth, if you think it's a truth, and somebody else contradicts it, like your truth should stand up to some criticism. If your truths can't stand up to any criticisms, then that's not the truth. That's a belief.
Yeah.
And so I find that very funny in this time and space too, how many people get triggered over other people's, constructive criticism over their beliefs. It's like, well, like if what you're saying is the truth, then, it should stand up to some criticism, and we should all be able to offer our opinions on a certain subject, you know. But anyways, the majority of today's conversation, I really wanted to talk about, well, and I don't know if we even really talked about like what we've really done to manage the judgment, or like how we've managed to make that be okay, except for I have a saying that is that, I try and focus on the people that want to be in my life and spend time, effort, and energy on them, and try not to focus on the people that don't want to be in my life or waste any time, effort or energy, on them. Relationships are revolving doors, and people come in and go out, and sometimes people...
Best advice your dad ever gave you.
Yeah, and sometimes people can come in and go out within a day, and sometimes it takes a couple of years. And I think that's where, being flexible and being unconditionally loving and realizing that it's just going to ebb and flow, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just know that you're ultimately going to, find yourself surrounded by people that have that think similar.
Mm-hmm. You'll find them. Yeah. You'll find your people.
We all find who we want to be around, who we resonate with.
Yeah. Or you'll make your people, like what we've done.
It feels very sad at first.
Yeah.
Of course it feels sad.
It feels like a great loss until you realize what you've gained.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's perfectly stated.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then when you look around and you realize what you've gained, the loss doesn't seem to be so bad.
No, it doesn't sting anymore. You know. And I think sadly the majority of people that take a plant medicine for these types of reasons go through this.
Yeah, I think so too.
But they'll all tell you it's so much better on the other side.
I know, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but again, your friend yesterday, I mean, he was just looking at us like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I get it, guys. Like, I just have so many questions. And I was just like, I mean, and there you go.
I was like, and welcome.
And it was so fun too.
Been waiting a long time for you to get here, man.
And he was like, but what does it mean? And
because how many times did I want to give up on him?
Oh, I know.
I'm like, man, I just don't vibe with this guy.
I just can't
anymore.
do it.
And you were like, I don't know.
He keeps on coming back.
You guys have, this is a guy I've known since I was 14 and he was 13.
But the one thing I knew about him is that he is intrinsically intelligent.
Yeah, he is.
And he is a question everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Annoyingly. Yeah.
And, and we also know that it also helps that there are other people that he knows that have had ridiculous amounts of healing.
Yeah.
From taking a nootropic.
Yeah. Yeah. And he observes. And he finally hit that breaking point where it was like that other friend, like, because I heard his name's John. Yeah. So I heard John's story yesterday. And this isn't a guy who's like been doing mushrooms his whole life and smokes weed. And this is a guy who was a drinker.
Yeah. An addict, right?
Yeah. And then decided to smoke weed one time. And like a lot of us have done when we've had cannabis, you start questioning, why are we here? How did we get here?
What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the
Seems
purpose?
like you're going to at least have those thoughts once. And it was his son that said, Dad, his son's like 20 something. Dad, we just can't have this conversation until you do DMT. And he was like, what the hell's DMT? And long story short, this guy found some and completely, but see, he healed things too.
Yeah.
And so now Matt's coming back into town and he's like, well, we already knew that Joel's been down this road for 6 years now. And now I got this guy and this guy and this guy. He's like,
yeah,
okay.
Kind of gives you the courage, and then presented an opportunity. And he was like, yes.
Took it in a second, like bravery, because it's not the bravery of taking the plant. It's the bravery of, all right, I'm ready to see how this is going to change me, or this is going to open my eyes so that I can change myself. These plants don't change you. You do the work.
Yeah. There's a famous kind of like an analogy, I guess it is. And forgive me, anyone that actually knows what I'm talking about, but the story goes basically that there's a bunch of people that are chained in a cave. Mm-hmm. And they're forced to look in one direction, and all they can see is the shadows. That's their reality, is these shadows that they see, and they really think that is their reality, until one day one of them turns around and looks the other direction and sees that there's, this completely different reality, and that they're just seeing the reflection of that reality on the wall that they thought was actual reality. Mm-hmm. And taking a psychedelic is a lot like that. It's like you had no idea. Yeah, you had no idea that there was more. Not, a lot of people are like, well, it's a different, dimension. It's like, no, it's an expansion of the one that you're in. Mm-hmm. And now you're just aware of it. And the coolest thing about infinity, like numbers, right? Numbers are infinite. So is perspective and the expansion of consciousness. So are dimensions. So are the perspectives that you gain access to as you open up and expand and shift perspective and get curious about yourself. It's been one of the most enjoyable, heart-wrenching, ass-kicking, beautiful experiences of my life anyways.
And you're better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And I seek to be, I shouldn't say seek, but I think that's the best thing about this too, is that there's nothing, I know without a shadow of a doubt, there is nothing that I can't confront, shift, or change without the right perspective. And I know that I can have access to those perspectives as I expand and open up to being more in line with the truth. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you hit blockages, which we all do, that's where the psychedelics are beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And kind of releasing the cork or the plaque within your life.
Sometimes you hit that wall and you just don't know what to do. And you can't see a different perspective, and you can't come up with a plan. And it's like you're in a rut or a loop. Right. And you're like, I just need something to knock me out of this.
Right. And what's interesting is that...
In walks the plants.
What's interesting is that like people will comment at that. Like we've heard other people that work with plant medicines kind of like, well, you don't always go running to them, or the people that haven't taken the plant medicines, like they think that there's something wrong with that. But then they take a pharmaceutical every single day, multiple times a day. They're also leaning into a chemical every single day. We're not leaning into chemicals every single day. We're leaning into the chemicals, the alkaloids of these plants, maybe once a year, maybe once every couple of years. Yeah. For the most part, we're doing this on our own because one of the things that the plants teach you how to do is how to go within yourself.
Right.
They give you these tools that you didn't even know existed. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a cool way to put it. They give you a big tool bag. Here you go.
Yeah. And you spend half the time going, what the fuck is this tool?
What's this tool do?
What does this one work on? Yeah.
It's I can't say it enough. I say it all the time because I do get asked when the topic comes up, oh, you've told me all the hard parts. Is it worth it? A million times over. It's not. No question. No hesitation. It's worth it. Ask anybody that's still around me. Mm-hmm. I'm better. I'm a better person to be around. Hands
down. I mean, like, again, this year has been probably the best year of marriage that we've ever had.
Considering how challenging it is in other topics.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're so close now. I mean, I'm not closer to anyone other than you, really.
No, same.
Yeah. And I think, when I think about like what has made our relationship, how do I know that this is forever, right? Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it is just what we've learned in this last year about communication and how important that is, about not interpreting micro gestures and creating our own thought paradigms about what those micro gestures mean without communicating and asking for some understanding and right, at least for me.
Oh yeah.
I think that the idea that you're not in control of me and I'm not in control of you, that we love each other and we accept each other and we're evolving, and that our core beliefs are going to constantly ebb and flow and change, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think the probably one core belief that will never change is that we're both heart-based and unconditionally loving.
Yep.
But other than that, I mean, anything could change, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I hope, that's what makes life interesting.
Right. I know if I was the same person or you were the same person day in and day out, I mean, at some point that would be like, oh my gosh.
We were.
I know.
Only progressively getting worse. I know. Because as you become more uncomfortable with life, we do what we do, right? We drink, we smoke, we eat, we do all these things to check out.
Yeah.
And there's not that there's not times I still would like to check out, but there's just no comparison.
Right. It's almost like the more sober that we become, the more psychedelic everything gets.
Life.
Right?
Yeah.
The more present that we are, and people hear this all the time, the power of now, Eckhart Tolle, and, Adyashanti talks a lot about this as well. A lot of people do, Deepak Chopra and stuff about being present. But it's almost a superpower to be present.
For sure. That's why people, after they take a psychedelic, they run to nature.
Yeah, because nature is the best example of being present. I mean, you just think about a tree.
Yeah.
And like a tree that's stood in the same place for over, 100 or 200 years or longer.
Right.
I mean, it's remarkable how being present is.
I mean, you think about where we live and how gorgeous it is where we live. And we have everything here we have everything.
Right.
Everything here. And never even explored it until I did a psychedelic. And then I'm like, what the fuck? Look at all this beauty.
Yeah.
And that's what I love when I hear people talking about when they do something.
Well, it's you're reconnecting into this ecosystem that you forgot that you even belonged to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that realization is so, poignant. It's usually a pivotal point in your evolutionary cycle where you realize that, you're actually made from the same stuff as the earth.
Yeah. Well,
and that you belong to the ecosystem and that you've been disconnected and you need to click back into the ecosystem,
Well, if that was wrong, it wouldn't feel so right.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, we wouldn't have the receptors that we have within our brains and our bodies, to plug and play with these plant medicines that have been used for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
Yeah.
I mean, how many? They dug up that medicine man in Siberia, and he had cannabis and mushrooms and a couple other. He had like the acacia tree, which is a DMT. Yeah. Like he had a whole medicine bag of psychedelics. And they're just like, okay, he must have been a medicine man. Or was he a drug dealer by today's standards? No, he was a medicine man. He was walking around trying to heal people.
Yeah.
I
just think it's funny now that people will talk about plant medicines as being drugs. Just sort of shows where they're at in their time and space. But, again, someone like myself that was a legit alcoholic, I don't know of any drug that will actually heal you from being addicted to drugs. And, I was legit addicted to alcohol. And, really I attribute wachuma. So I think this, which is a cactus, to curing me of my alcoholism through perspective. I mean, isn't that so great too? Is that like Western medicine teaches you take a pill, sit back, it will work for you. You don't have to go within. You don't have to think about.
Western medicine's cure for alcoholism is white knuckling it.
Well,
we're going to just compartmentalize it. We're going to box it, and then we're going to give you a coin every year if you don't drink.
Or AA, which used to have 13 steps, that 13th step being LSD. The whole program was designed.
This is what I love about Matt. I told him that. He's like, there's no way that's true. I'm like, Google it.
Yeah, Google it.
Like,
and guess what? It's right there. Google
it. That's how
it.
the founder of AA cured his
alcoholism. Yeah.
They took it out, and, we know people that are in AA. Mm-hmm. They white knuckle it.
Well, they're alcoholics still.
Matt, he called them dry alcoholics.
Yeah, I know. They're obsessed with alcohol without drinking alcohol.
I was like, that is a great description. They're dry alcoholics.
Yeah, my dad's like that. One of my brothers asked him, why don't you cook anymore? And he goes, well, that's something I used to do with wine. So he deprives himself of doing something that he loves because of that neuroconnective
Instead of
pathway.
falling in love with it again and associating it with alcohol.
But that's the thing. That's the thing that nobody talks about these plant medicines. They help you literally regenerate brain cells.
Yeah.
But they also help you reconnect these neuroconnective pathways that have been disconnected or unrightly connected in other ways.
Yeah.
And so those connections that, like, for instance, my dad has about cooking and alcohol with a psychedelic could disconnect and he could just enjoy cooking again.
Yeah.
I have experienced this inside of my brain. I wish more than anything people could get inside of my brain and they could see what was happening within my brain and then see what happened after.
Yeah.
Because it was so profound, the room, the space, them being able to stop this play, rewind of trauma.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is that you have an incredibly profound experience happen in the tailor made way for you, just for you, that nothing else or no one else would ever even kind of know how to do. And you have such profound result that you want to share it, with
but what percentage,
everyone.
What percentage of what happens can you even articulate?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that some of these things, like...
It's so personal.
Yeah, you and I have shared everything. But there are certain things that we've not shared with anyone other than each other because of that.
Yeah.
Specifically with ayahuasca, it's like it's a vine and it vines its way into the foci. It finds your foci, like the source of all the pain. And it stabs it and it retracts and it brings it back right into your awareness and shows you.
Yeah.
Show me a pharmaceutical that fucking does that, man.
There isn't one.
Right. No, of course not.
But the goals are different.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, like, what do you mean by that?
What I mean is they're trying to keep you as a customer.
Yeah, because you can't make money off of healthy people.
And argue with me all day long. There's not a single pharmaceutical for your brain that has an end. It's meant to be taken forever.
Yeah, and you tell these so-called doctors, or you ask these doctors, when can I get off this? They're like, never.
Yeah, they say you have a mental illness.
And
I'm like, there's no cure? Nope, no cure.
Yeah, that's how advanced these Western medicine, these allopathic doctors are. They're so advanced.
You're like, this antidepressant doesn't seem to be working anymore. Oh, take more. Mm-hmm. I'm taking 60 milligrams. Doesn't seem to be working. Oh, you know what? We'll just try another one.
The other thing that frustrates me about this is that, that you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people now that are leaning into naturopathic, homeopathic ways.
Right.
Anti-inflammatory diets, right? Reconnecting with botanicals, reconnecting back with the earth, clicking back into the ecosystems, working with psychedelics, right? And we're getting real results. And you've got like I don't know what else to call them except for the most unintelligent, allopathic Western medicine doctors that are like, that's anecdotal. Or my favorite one is, that's placebo. It's like, hello, if the people are having that kind of profound healing on placebo, maybe we should research placebo.
That was the same conversation I had with Matt yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's wrong with placebo? Aren't we just worried about the results? So if the results are a cure, it worked.
Yeah. Shouldn't we like put down the chemicals that are actually creating side effects that are hurting people? And
I told him yesterday, blew his fucking mind. Blew his mind. I told him about Shappy.
Oh, yeah.
Blew his mind. Because his friend John has a brother that's got early onset of MS. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, he's like, what do you mean it cured her? I'm like, cured her and her sister.
Yeah, they went from being in wheelchairs. I think her sister was the one that showed up in a wheelchair and double vision and walked out with no double vision.
So the last time I was in Peru, Howard, our shaman, I was talking to another guy from Iran named Farhad, and I was talking to him about it, and he was like, you're full of shit. So Howard comes and sits down. I said, Howard, tell him Farhad about Shappy's sister. But
he thinks
Howard,
we're full of shit.
Yeah, I go, I go, well, you just kind of let him know what happened. And Howard goes, well, she showed up in a wheelchair and she left walking. And she can drive now because she doesn't have double vision. And he just went down the whole thing. And Farhad said, yeah, a lot of people that have escaped Iran are suffering from MS for whatever reason. What an interesting coincidence.
PTSD, man. Or maybe some sort of, aerosol they put in there.
Well, so Howard's like, well, MS is neurological.
Yep.
And ayahuasca works with the neurological diseases. It cures them. And Farhad, I don't know the end results because I don't know the guy very well. I didn't really stay in touch, but I know that he personally paid for like several of his family members to go down there and posted pictures shortly after of everyone with big, big smiles, so anyway, these plants do lots of things.
Because again, we're energy, frequency, and vibration. So these plants are literally helping to cure the illnesses that we have in our energy, in our frequency, in our vibration.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times what medical doctors, Western doctors do is just look at the biology. But we're not, why are we stopping there? I asked one of my friends one time, who is the most educated person that I know, went to Cambridge, worked at Harvard. He works in New Zealand now as a real nutritional scientist. Like that's actually his job. He doesn't just synopsize case studies. He puts them together and then does them.
Right.
And I asked him one time, I said, why don't we stop at the biology of things? Like, we're made of atoms. Like, why aren't we looking at disease from a quantum perspective? And he goes, oh, humanity's not ready for that yet. That was his educated response to me, was humanity's not ready for that yet. But the thing is that there are medicines out there, i.e. plant medicines, psychedelics, entheogens, whatever you want to call them, that do look from that perspective.
Yeah.
We haven't gone into detail, but like with you had a severe allergy to shellfish and to poultry. And after, your first time with ayahuasca, you no longer suffered with that allergy.
No, that's I think that's what really messed my family up. Yeah.
Medical doctors, you have a friend that's a medical doctor too. And he was just like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
That's because they're not trained to look at the quantum spaces and to see how disease originates from those spaces.
They don't understand that something traumatic, like Howard put it best, something traumatic manifests itself in a physical way sometimes.
Yeah. It finds whatever the weakness is within the biology and expresses itself within that medium.
So for me, I was allergic to poultry my whole life, since 5, and that'll be another podcast.
Yeah.
But, came back not allergic anymore because I healed the trauma that created the allergy, which happens a lot.
Yeah, we hear this a lot.
It wasn't a unique case. Yeah, it wasn't a unique case. Howard had lots of examples of other people that went through the same thing.
Now, a lot, there's a one of the case studies right now going on with maps.org is individuals that have been given a death sentence with, cancer or, other illnesses, and they've taken, medicinal doses of psychedelics, not because it's going to cure them, but it gives them a perspective about their mortality, about the fear they have surrounded with death that most people, I think, struggle with.
Right.
that gives them an enormous amount of peace so that they can be more present and live fully.
Which sometimes cures them.
Right. Yeah. Which cures the anxiety because,
worry and fear is acidic.
Yeah. There's a great documentary called Emotion, E-Motion.
Yeah.
And it's on, it was on Amazon. I don't know where it's at now, but I tell you what, that gives you a really good idea of what happens when you are suffering from, when you're suffering from basically, disease from a quantum space.
Yeah.
And how it can manifest on the biology of the body. But, well, we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah, I think we're just under an hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's okay. Or
all right.
Maybe we're over an hour. I don't know. Like this is tracking in seconds. So instead of actual time. That's why I was just trying to do the conversion on my phone.
Oh, is that, it's like 31,712 seconds.
3,173 and a half seconds.
Oh, from my perspective, I didn't see that decimal. I'm like, what?
You're like, holy shit, that's a lot of seconds.
Yeah. But anything in conclusion that you want to say about traversing the ebb and flow of relationships? Well, after taking a psychedelic.
I mean, for me, my summary is very simple. Is it rough? Yeah. Would I do it again? 1,000,000 times over. My quality of life is better. And everyone around me that stayed within my circle has, received benefit of me being a better person. Mm-hmm. Same with you. So, yeah, is it hard with the relationships that ebb and flow? Of course. Yeah, but like you said, relationships are a revolving door. Once you accept that, that's okay. Mm-hmm. You take my friend who I've been at odds with because I don't feel like he was getting me and I feel like he was judging me. And then at some point, something inside of him went, you know what? I gotta taste this. I gotta see what's going on. And boom. And he's gonna see a lot of benefit from his little experience.
And I'm excited for him. Do you think that you can still unconditionally love somebody when they're not in your life?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's important, right?
Yeah.
To at some point.
I still love my siblings and my parents.
Yeah, me too. All of them.
Yeah. So.
And unconditionally so, even though I recognize that the boundary is such that we can't have each other in each other's lives right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now.
And that's okay.
I don't know. And I don't know if right now is forever.
Right. Right now. Yeah, right. Exactly. It makes no sense to think about what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
Just to stay focused on right here.
It just comes down to that whole, as your parents told you all growing up, don't be selfish, don't be selfish. Actually, it comes down to being selfish, taking the steps you need to improve yourself and be the best version of you, and everything else changes.
Yeah, I call it selflessness towards self.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, because what you don't know is that your reality is a reflection of what's happening within yourself.
So redirect same question towards you. What are your thoughts?
I just know that when I learned how to forgive, and I'm not talking about forgiving anybody for anything that they've done to me, but just finding forgiveness within myself. Mm-hmm. It released me from this crazy amount of anger and hurt, I didn't have to carry it around anymore.
Yeah.
And I unconditionally love all of my siblings and my parents, even though some of them choose not to be in my life and I choose not to be in their life. Mm-hmm. And I just, and I really don't have any regrets, and I don't have any hurt feelings. For the longest time, I hesitated sending a letter to my dad. Because I think that pain was working for me. It was keeping me connected to him. And what I was worried about was that I was going to own my shit, and then I wouldn't get any communication back from him. Or in my mind at the time, even worse, my worst fear was that he would read my letter and then still not want me to be in his life, which is what happened. Mm-hmm. But what was interesting was my heart almost opened up even more so after that. And I loved him even more so. And I was able to really let go. And what I realized is this entire time it had nothing to do with him. It had to do with what I was choosing to hang on to.
Yeah.
And then it was going to be okay. And really just to focus on the people in my life that want to be in my life, because they're pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah.
We have a really incredible home.
Yeah.
You know, our kids come home and will tell us about other people's homes or their friends. And it's just like, oh my gosh, we have something.
Create a cool space.
Yeah. So special. You know, all of our kids are healthy. You know, none of them are, you know, struggling with obesity or, you know, we don't abuse our children. You know, our children.
We don't let them be babysat by the Xbox. They're
right.
Yeah. They're engaged.
Yeah. And they have cousins that love them, and they have aunts, you know, an aunt and uncles that love them.
Yeah, I know we have to like break it down.
I'm like, hold on, there's only one aunt.
There's only one aunt left, two uncles. But again, it's okay.
Yeah.
Because they're the best ones, and they're the ones that we're, you know, vibing with right now.
But they have two parents that love them ferociously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's through our own experiences and the disconnect that we've had.
Yeah.
And the way that we felt through the disconnect that we realized and identified that we don't ever want to be responsible for helping our children feel that way. And that it really, like, for instance, that transitionary period that we had with Taylor, with our oldest, and now what we're going through with Kai, our second oldest, from, you know, children to adult, and really having to reorganize our relationship with them into transitioning more into a friendship, realizing that our place with them, regardless of how we see things, is to support and to encourage and to love.
Yeah. Well, and you got to let your kids fail.
Yeah. And you've got to let your kids fail.
Just be there to pick them back up.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah. Well, if you play Captain Save-A-Ho with your kids, they're never going to learn anything. And we've figured that out the hard way. So.
Well, thanks for doing a podcast with me this morning.
Well,
talking about the current events.
You're very welcome. I think what I'd like to leave off with is, you know, we're still kind of filling out our voice and what we're going to talk about. And we'd be happy for people to email us questions or
leave a comment,
questions. Like, you know, we think that this could be a pretty cool platform because we're not your typical, you know, we're parents that healed themselves with plants, and it's made us better humans. And, you know, we would love to pass on anything we've gained from our experiences. And
and we're going to get in the weeds. Like, we're not going to sit here and talk about love and light all the time and how it's been shits and giggles, because that's just not true.
Right.
And it's not true for anybody. We're not trying to make a business out of it. We legitimately just want to put a voice to a lot of people, such as ourselves, that have reached out to an unconventional way of seeking healing in an unconventional modality that, unbeknownst to us, has been kept a secret for hundreds of years, you know, has been beneficial and has helped humanity for tens of thousands of years, if not a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Here.
Here.
Okay. Well, till next time.
All
Thanks
right.
for hanging out with us.
Yep. Till next time.
Bye.